Have you ever poured your heart into a conversation with your child, only to feel like they're not really hearing you? Or maybe you've noticed them rolling their eyes when you share advice, or brushing off your feelings like they don't matter. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know something. You're not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. But here's the good news. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something you inspire. Today, we'll talk about 6 powerful shifts that can help you reclaim your voice, starting with the first step that might surprise you. Let's start with something we've all done: chasing approval. You know what I mean? Saying yes when you want to say no, biting your tongue to keep the peace, or rearranging your life to fit their schedule. We do it because we love them. But here's the hard truth. The more you bend, the smaller you become in their eyes. And the smaller you feel, the easier it is for them to overlook you. Take Margaret. She spent years accommodating her kids, canceling plans, swallowing her opinions, even laughing off rude comments. "I just want harmony," she'd say. But harmony came at a cost. Her children started seeing her as someone who'd always yield, always adjust, and slowly her voice faded into the background. Then one day, Margaret stopped chasing. She started saying no without apology. She spoke up even when her voice shook. And guess what? Her kids didn't walk away. They leaned in, because suddenly they saw a woman who respected herself, and that's a woman worth respecting. The lesson? Stop begging for a seat at their table. Build your own. Now let's talk about the second shift, and this one's tough. When your kids dismiss you, your first instinct might be to fight, to list every sacrifice, every late night, every dollar spent. But here's the thing. Arguing for respect is like shouting into a storm. It drains you, and no one hears a word. Frank learned this the hard way. He'd argue, defend, even plead, but it only pushed his kids further away. Then he tried something radical: silent strength. He stopped reacting. He listened. He spoke calmly, without desperation, and slowly his children began to mirror his calm. They started asking for his thoughts instead of dismissing them. Why? Because Frank wasn't just demanding respect. He was modeling it. Here's the secret. Respect isn't taken, it's given, and it starts with you. When you carry yourself like someone who deserves dignity, others feel it. So take up space, speak your truth, and let your actions say, "This is how I expect to be treated." Now you might wonder, what about the loneliness? The fear that setting boundaries will push them away? That's where we're headed next. Because the third shift isn't about them, it's about you. It's about building a life so full, so vibrant, that their respect becomes a natural reflex, not a negotiation. You know, there's a moment in every parent's life when you realize your children aren't just yours anymore. They have their own families, their own chaos, their own worlds. And sometimes in the quiet moments, it can feel like you're standing on the sidelines of their lives, waiting for an invitation that never comes. But here's the truth. Waiting for them to fill your cup will only leave you thirsty. Let's talk about the third shift, one that's less about them and more about you: emotional independence. Now that might sound cold, like shutting people out, but it's the opposite. It's about filling your life with so much joy, purpose, and connection that you're no longer dependent on your children to feel valued. Because here's the hard truth. Needing someone's love too desperately is a recipe for resentment on both sides. Take Helen. After her husband passed, she clung to her kids, calling daily, dropping unannounced, hoping they'd fill the emptiness. But the more she leaned on them, the further they drifted. Then one day, Helen made a choice. She joined a hiking group, started painting, volunteered at an animal shelter, and slowly something shifted. Her kids began calling her. "Mom, you're always so busy," they'd tease, but in their voices, pride, respect. Because Helen wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a person, someone fascinating, someone they wanted to know. The lesson? Your children will never respect you as a parent until they admire you as a human. Build a life that excites you, not just one that orbits them. Take that cooking class, reconnect with old friends, rediscover the hobbies you abandoned decades ago. When they see you thriving, they'll stop seeing you as someone who needs them, and start seeing you as someone they want in their lives. Now let's talk about boundaries, the fourth shift. And I know what you're thinking, but they're my children. How can I set rules with my own family? Here's the secret. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges. They teach people how to love you well. Robert learned this after years of biting his tongue. His kids interrupted him, criticized his choices, even mocked his old-fashioned ideas. One day he'd had enough. The next time his son talked over him, Robert didn't shout. He simply said, "I'll finish my thought when you're ready to listen." Silence. Then slowly his son leaned back. "Sorry, Dad, go ahead." That small moment changed everything, because Robert wasn't demanding respect. He was demonstrating it. Here's the thing. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're about self-respect. You don't have to yell. You don't have to guilt. You just have to be clear. "I won't stay for dinner if you're going to criticize my life." "I'd love to help, but I need you to ask politely." No drama, no lectures, just quiet, unwavering dignity. And over time, they'll learn. Not because you force them, but because they'll realize your peace isn't negotiable. Now you might worry, what if they walk away? What if they get angry? Let me ask you this. Would you rather have a relationship built on obligation or one built on mutual respect? The choice is yours. But I've seen time and again, when you hold the line with love, they come back. And when they do, it's not out of guilt. It's out of genuine admiration. Next, we'll tackle the fifth shift, one that might sting at first, because it's time to ask yourself, are you giving more than they're grateful for? And if the answer is yes, it's time to stop, not out of spite, but because generosity without gratitude isn't love. It's self-betrayal, and rebuilding respect starts there. There's a moment in every parent's journey when you realize you are more than a caregiver, more than a fixer, more than a placeholder in someone else's story. You are a living, breathing universe of passions, wisdom, and dreams. And that is where respect begins. Let's talk about the final shift and how to make it stick. Shift 6. Build a life they're curious about. I know, this sounds selfish. After decades of putting them first, how could you possibly focus on yourself? But here's the truth. Your children will never respect you as a parent until they admire you as a person. And admiration doesn't come from laundry folded or advice given. It comes from watching you light up, take risks, and live unapologetically. Eleanor learned this after years of waiting for calls, waiting for visits, waiting for her kids to need her again. Then one morning she booked a solo trip to the Rockies. No permission asked, no apologies made. When her daughter found out, she panicked. "Mom, are you sure? What if something happens?" Eleanor smiled and said, "Then I'll handle it." And in that moment, her daughter saw her not as a responsibility, but as a force. Suddenly, her kids weren't just checking in out of duty. They were asking, "Where are you off to next? Can we see your photos? How'd you learn to do that?" Eleanor's life became a magnet, not because she demanded attention, but because she'd become someone worth watching. The lesson? Stop shrinking your world to fit theirs. Expand it and let them catch up. Now let's tie this all together. Respect isn't about guilt, obligation, or nostalgia for the past. It's about now. It's about showing up as the fullest, fiercest version of yourself and letting that version speak louder than any argument ever could. Margaret stopped chasing approval and became a woman who commands it. Frank stopped arguing and became a man worth listening to. Helen stopped clinging and became someone her kids choose to call. Robert set boundaries and became a father who's heard, not just heard from. And Eleanor, she stopped waiting and became a story her kids can't wait to tell. So here's your challenge. For 1 week, live like the person you want your children to respect. Not the parent who sacrificed everything, but the human who's still daring to grow. Say no without guilt. Speak up without fear. Invest in your joy without apology. And watch what happens. Because when you stop asking for respect and start embodying it, they'll have no choice but to rise to meet you. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these shifts will you try first? Share your plan in the comments. You might give someone else the courage to begin. And if this video resonated with you, hit a like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who needs this reminder. Together, let's rewrite what aging looks like, one bold, unapologetic step at a time. If this resonated with you, hit like and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss our next video. Until then, keep cherishing every moment.